May 13th, 2014 Longmont City Council meeting to order. This is a regular session. Could we please start with a roll call?
Yes, Mayor Coombs.
Here.
Council members Bagley.
Here.
Christensen. Here. Finley. Here. Levison. Here. Moore. Here. Santos. Here. Mayor Coombs, we have a quorum.
All right, and Troop 67 is going to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Anyone wishing to speak at first call, public invited to be heard, will need to add his or her name to the list outside the council chambers. Only those on the list will be invited to speak at first call, public invited to be heard. Speakers who do not place their name on the list will have an opportunity to speak during the public hearing items this evening or at final call, public invited to be heard on any item at the end of the meeting. Valerie, are there any agenda revisions?
No, Mayor Coombs, we do not have any agenda revisions.
Is there a report from the city manager?
No, Mayor, Council, no report.
Okay.
Mayor Coombs, the first item on your agenda is the introduction of the Longmont Chamber of Commerce Leadership Longmont Class of 2014. And
Okay.
Kathy Weber Harding is here from the Chamber, and Don Haddad from the St. Vrain Valley School District. Sorry.
Thank you for letting us do this again this year. I have the pleasure of co-chairing this program with Dr. Don Haddad from the school district, and he's going to be introducing the class, and they'll be coming forward, and then we'd love to have a photo of all of you. So.
Okay, good evening, Mayor and council members. Thank you for the time. I'm going to just tell you a little bit about Leadership Longmont, and then I'm going to introduce some of these folks. This is our 8th year, and we are excited about that. So we're looking at somewhere around 200 people have gone through our program at this point. And each year we have about 20 to 25 individuals. And the nice thing is we begin to see them taking their place in different leadership positions throughout the city and beyond. So it's been a very exciting opportunity for me. Kathy Weber Harding, who's the president of the chamber, has done an amazing job with this program. Each and every year it just gets a little bit better. And some of the things that we do, and some of you have also participated in this, we focus on education, we focus on city management and city functions, healthcare, communications, transportation, a whole host of things, so that by the time our participants get through, they know quite a bit. And they also get to work together in teams to develop projects on specific topics. So we're very proud of this graduating class. We've also done something new in the last couple of classes. We've included some students and that's been outstanding. They've done a great job. So I'm going to read the names, and then Kathy, would you like to have them come up as I read the names? All right. We have Caitlin Anderson from the Firehouse Arts Center, Michelle Baltieres from High Plains Bank, Olga Bermudez, City of Longmont, Christine Cavalier, the Group Incorporated Real Estate, Catherine Crowley from Longmont High School, Matt Eldred from TLC Learning Center, Eric Finnestad from the St. Vrain Valley School District, Aaron Fostick from the City of Longmont, Scott Gilbert from Guarantee Bank and Trust, Johnny Harris from Snyder Jewelers, Joanne Honey from Red Cloud Road. That's where she lives, actually. That's not where she's from. New business. All right. Dale Hayden from Total Facility Care. Dan Kramer from the City of Longmont. Peter Powers from Longmont United Hospital. Beth Serrata from the City of Longmont. Ross Volk from Volk Bell. Carrie Westland from Sunflower Bank. Haley Westmoreland from Meade High School. And Diana Wilson from the City of Longmont. So, congratulations to the 2014 Leadership Longmont class. It's been a pleasure, and you guys have done outstanding work, and we look forward to your next leadership role within the city and beyond. So, congratulations. And Mayor, would it be possible for you and City Council members to come up and take a picture with our participants?
I'm good.
Okay, let's go this way. Ready? 1, 2, 3. One more that way. 1, 2, 3. Hang on, we're doing view text. That's right, maybe on page first. Well.
Oh, thank you.
Dan. Red.
Maybe.
What? Crimson. What?
Me too.
Okay. Okay, next we have a proclamation designating the month of May 2014 as Historic Preservation Month in Longmont. A member of the Historic Preservation Committee is here to accept the proclamation.
Here comes, I believe it's Ruth Saunders, who's vice chair of the committee.
All right, I'll go ahead and read the proclamation. Proclamation designating the month of May 2014 as Historic Preservation Month in Longmont, Colorado. Whereas historic preservation is an effective tool for revitalizing neighborhoods, fostering local pride, and maintaining community character while enhancing livability, and whereas historic preservation is relevant for communities across the nation, both urban and rural, and for Americans of all ages, all walks of life, and all ethnic backgrounds, and whereas it is important to celebrate the role of history in our lives and the contributions made by the dedicated individuals in helping preserve the tangible aspects of the heritage that has shaped us as a people, and whereas heritage at work, Celebrate, Volunteer, Protect is the theme for Archaeological and Historic Preservation Month 2014 in Colorado. And whereas the Historic Preservation Commission supports Historic Preservation Month in Longmont for May 2014. Now therefore, I, Dennis L. Coombs, Mayor, by the virtue of authority vested in me and the City Council of the City of Longmont, do hereby proclaim May 2014 as Historic Preservation Month in Longmont, and call upon the residents of our community to join their fellow citizens across the United States in recognizing and participating in this special observation. Yeah. Would you like to make us any statements, or? First now.
I actually hadn't prepared anything. I thought it would be a photo op. But as I really listened to what you said, it's first of all, I should thank the council. I should thank Council Member Sarah Levison and Brian Schumacher, who's been wonderful to work with as our staff liaison in this group. And you know, when people talk about Longmont as they're passing through, they talk about sort of that old downtown section and some of the very cool buildings we have and some of the things we really have to be proud of, including the sort of the partnership that was done with the cheese importers in one of our most beautiful buildings. A friend of mine once told me that she thought that was the best building in Longmont. And that was before cheese importers moved into it. So I think we have a lot to be proud of, and certainly a lot of work to do ahead of us as well. So thank you.
Thank you. The best thing about historic preservation is the state government gives you a ton of money back. Okay, it's time for public invited to be heard. Doug Brown, Stephen.
Longmont City Council members. Good evening, Longmont City Council members, Mayor and pro-team Mayor, and Sarah Levinston and Gabe, some friends. Thank you for having me here tonight.
Could you also state your address for the record, please, Doug?
I live at 6782 North 79th Street, apartment number 3, Longmont, Colorado 80503. 10 years ago, I almost died at the stroke of a pen. After having a stroke and breaking my back, I became homeless at the age of 47. Homeless was not a word that I had described at that time. I had lived in Boulder all my life. Homeless was not a part of my life. I was in shock. I was now homeless and wanted by the law. While I was in the VA hospital, my landlord evicted me. He claimed to have thrown all of my possessions out on the curb. Thousands of dollars of tools and equipment. The only pictures I had of my father and the children's belongings that were stored in their old bedrooms. Out of all the things that were thrown out to the curb was my safe, with old silver dollars in it. It has never been seen. The wooden crates with Tonka fire trucks and old Tonka that my grandson had collected had been taken to a thrift store where my landlord received an $800 tax write-off. My cars were impounded, and I was mad as anyone could get. I had my second stroke. My landlord found me face down in the sidewalk in the rain, grabbed me and yelled, "If I ever see you on my property, I'll have you arrested." That's how I became homeless and living in the park. Now that may seem hard, but that is when I was introduced to the R Center, the only place I could go and eat. However, I was so mad I could not see because of cataracts in both eyes. and even to this day I cannot hear well. When I can't hear, I talk loud just so that I can hear myself. Most of the time others think that I'm yelling at them. This is how I met my saint, Reverend Sandy Stewart. Reverend Stewart approached me at the time that I was about to get thrown out of the R Center for yelling. Reverend Stewart asked me to tell her my story. I yelled to her about what had happened. She listened to everything I had to say. Then she wanted to pray with me. Reverend Stewart said that if I kept up with my destructive ways, things would definitely become worse. Reverend Stewart suggested that I move forward from this point on trying to improve my life. Let somebody else deal with the past. It would only cause me harm, possibly even cause me to have another stroke. All I could do was ask Reverend Stewart. If I tried, would she help me? Reverend Stewart made no promises. If I were to follow the rules, I could improve my life. Reverend Stewart's rules are hard but fair. This is when I became a volunteer at the R Center 8 years ago. 8 years ago, I came here to my first Longmont City Council meeting. I asked for help for the R Center to start the first homeless shelter here in Longmont. At that time, I was sleeping in the park. I was homeless. As I talked to the City Council, most counselors shared some of the best advice I could receive.
Unfortunately, Doug, we only get 3 minutes, and I wish I could give you more time. Yes.
Happy to give him my time.
Can you read for him then the rest of his?
Well, basically, I'd like to thank you all for being a support in my life.
Yeah, we appreciate everything you do for the community. I know I see you working hard every time I go down to the community college there, so I appreciate your contribution.
Some of us will be there. I read ahead.
Hey,
Yes.
thank
Thank
you
you,
all.
Doug.
And again, I would like to finish one little thing on this.
Okay, go ahead.
I'm proud that I asked the City Council for help. Now I ask, how may I help the City Council? Thank you all for giving me the time then and now.
Thank you, Doug. Next up is Buzz Feldman.
Good evening, City Council and Mayor. I am Buzz Feldman. I live at 3135 Lake Park Way. I'm here to talk a bit about item 9A on your consent agenda, the traffic safety surcharge. Disclaimer before I get started, I am a member of the Transportation Advisory Board, but I am not here as a representative of that board tonight, or speaking for that board, or as a member of that board. I'm here solely as an individual citizen of Longmont. I am a certified bike safety instructor from the League of American Bicyclists. I have also served a number of years as the Safe Routes to School coordinator, both for the city of Longmont and also for the St. Frank Valley School District. Previous council concerns about this proposal would be how would the dollars be used and does it fill a need? The amount generated that's projected to be generated by it is fairly small, but we can do quite a bit with just a few dollars. One of them that the needs is for bike safety classes. There's no way to measure an event that doesn't happen, but so if people are riding safer and they're not crashing and more people, it's something you just can't measure. But the classes teach accident avoidance, safe riding techniques. They create confidence in people to ride bikes. Through this proposal, they could be free or subsidized. The cities of Tucson, Arizona, Austin, Texas, and Fort Collins have all had quite a bit of success with this by offering free classes. Also, where there's a motor vehicle and a bicycle accident, if the motorist is at fault, there could be what we call motorist ed classes to teach the motorist what to expect from bicyclists on the roads. Safe Routes to School is currently funded through CDOT grants. They are not renewable from year to year. they have to change focus, change scope to be renewed, using some of this money to subsidize safe routes to school would keep it going very well in our schools here in Longmont. Downtown, we have created the Downtown Development Association has created a pedestrian-free zone along the sidewalks and put down signs. If you spend a few minutes downtown, you'll see people typically ignoring that. So that needs some education and some enforcement, and these funds could be used to help with that. So just wanted to express my support for this proposal that is coming up for first reading tonight, and thank you.
Thank you, Buzz. Brian Hansen?
Brian Hansen, 401 Mountain View Avenue. Good to see you, Mayor and council members. Thank you for allowing me to talk and continue my discussion from before. Hopefully I'll finish it up tonight. And just to refresh, basically what I'm trying to show in the slides, and I'll have an audio visual hopefully coming up soon as well, but in the slides I'm trying to show that there's a bit of an incompatibility between what, at least in my opinion, incompatibility between multiple residential and general kind of heavy industrial operations. And so I'll just go through some of the slides. Now, I apologize, there might be a little overlap from the last one because I don't remember exactly where I left off. So I'll try to go through them quickly. This is just sort of their metal moving operation, those tall racks back there. They're right up against the fence where the kids walk back behind there all the time to go to school, and stuff could easily fall through that. So it's one of my concerns there. They still have, this is actually today, so was that slide before. There's still a lot of truck traffic that comes in and out of here, and just seconds before that. And I think in this case, actually, there's somebody walked out there to be sure that it was clear before backing up. But, you know, still just a few seconds before this truck was backing up, in fact, you can even see the back of the truck there before he started backing up. You know, there's a lot of kids that walk right along here in this area still, and this is a very important route to school. Most of them actually walk on the sidewalk where you can't see it's out of view just because of the hazards there, but, you know, there's not really any sign that says kids are not allowed on this sidewalk because of the hazards presented by this business here. I think I showed you that before. That was where this truck was backing up. I think maybe I showed this to you. One of the trucks couldn't even see our trash can, picked it up, and you can see it just being drug around towards that parking lot over there. Let's see, I think we saw, maybe I left off here. This is a truck backing up, and there's some kids back there. I've even seen the kids try to get underneath of these semis when they would block the road off over there. And you can see the kids are short enough they can get under these semi-trailers quite easily. And there's a real hazard there when they're tempted to go under the semi because they really don't know when they're going to back up. And you can see that there's a lot of semi-traffic. You know, they're actually waiting. There's another one back behind. I think this was on the same day. I've seen as many as 3 or 4. This one's actually across the driveway, so nobody can go out through the driveway there. And they still do a lot of loading and unloading across the sidewalk. And I really think, you know, that should be for pedestrians and not for forklift operations. And they often do their strapping and unstrapping out in the street. And it gets a little crowded out there with all the trucks, and they do their loading and unloading out there in the street. And again, you can see they're moving a lot of stuff off those tall racks way over the top. If a piece of metal would ever slide off and go on the other side of the fence, you know, it could be a disaster. So anyway, I guess I'll finish up next time. Thank you very much for watching.
It is kind of scary. Strider Benston.
Yeah, Strider Benston, 951 17th Avenue, Longmont. Greetings, Mayor and Council. Let me finish up what Doug had written here, just because the points that he wanted to make. He got significant help from the Hour Center and counseling, and 4 years ago he entered Front Range, and he needed tutorial to learn to read and write. He is graduating tomorrow night, and is inviting the council to come and be with him and support him there. And he's entering Metro State College in Denver this fall for social work to help other homeless people. Other than that, Benghazi. Yeah, there seems to be a political organization in this country with millions of people who have a one-word answer to every question. And sometimes it's a different word, but now, since Obamacare doesn't work anymore because people love it now, a lot of people who get it, now, Benghazi, what's that? Well, the people who support that word don't even know where it is or what it is, but they love the word. And that is the nature of our political dialogue in this country currently. Mentioning Benghazi, they don't tend to correlate. Under Ronald Reagan, we lost 240 Marines in Beirut. There have been a whole lot of things that happened. Where's all the investigations? Under George W. Bush, president, we had 13 attacks on American facilities and embassies. 62 people died. Where's all the investigations? Where's all the incrimination of the government for that? Well, now, on Benghazi, there have been now starting 9 House and Senate investigations costing millions and millions of dollars, 25,000 pages of evidence. They haven't found anything, so they have to start a new investigation. What's the purpose? Well, there's 2 purposes. One, if you're not going to do any legislation to build infrastructure or to provide jobs for millions of people who need jobs or to pass unemployment compensation, you got to have something to corrupt and capture the people. That is what it's all about, 100%. Now, last week, we had a debate on church and state here in Longmont. 200 people came. It was very well balanced in terms of presentations. The final vote was very interesting, 3-3. People came, they had their opinions, but at least they listened and it was respectful. Thank you.
Thank you, Strider. Okay, I guess that ends public invited to be heard.
Mayor Coombs, we don't have any second reading ordinances or public hearings. So our consent agenda is item 9A, ordinance 2014-24, a bill for an ordinance amending chapter 11.04 of the Longmont Municipal Code regarding a traffic safety surcharge upon conviction. Second reading and public hearing scheduled for June 10th. Item 9B is ordinance 2014-25, a bill for an ordinance adding chapter 14.07 of the Longmont Municipal Code on redevelopment credits for water and sewer fees. Public hearing and second reading scheduled for June 10th. Item 9C is resolution 2014-49, approving the intergovernmental agreement between the city and the municipal subdistrict of the Northern Colorado Conservancy District Windy Gap Firming Project Activity Enterprise for the 7th Amendment to the 4th Interim Agreement for participation in the Windy Gap Firming Project. Item 9D is Resolution 2014-50, approving the submission of an application to the State of Colorado Department of Local Affairs, Division of Housing for grant funds for flood recovery efforts. And staff would like to pull item 9B for a presentation.
Councilmember Farrell.
Thank you, Mayor Coombs. I move the consent agenda minus 9B.
Second.
Okay. Councilmember Gregory.
Also like to pull my name.
Okay.
That's okay.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Okay, let's first off vote on Bonnie's. So we're to approve the consent agenda minus A and B. Let's vote. Okay, that passes 7-0.
Excuse me. Item 9A is the traffic safety surcharge upon conviction. And I think Sean Lewis can introduce this, but there are others in the audience to make a presentation.
Good evening, Mayor, members of council. Sean Lewis, Assistant City Manager. This is the, I believe, third time that this item has come before you, a couple of times just to get direction on whether or not you wanted to proceed. The ordinance that is before you tonight for first reading is the first time this has come to you as a formal policy. And as we've mentioned before, this proposal is being requested by Bicycle Longmont. So Ryan Kregerud with Bike Longmont is here tonight, and I will turn it over to him for questions.
Councilmember Bagley.
Thank you, Mayor Coombs. Before we start, the only thing I love, okay, more than bicycling, is swimming. Okay? Let's get that out of the way. You got a road bike, you know, carbon fiber, specialized S-Works, you know, during the summer, like 20 to 40 miles a day, except for Sunday. Love bicycling. Love it. Okay. I think that it's a great idea that we have some type of funding source in order to fund bicycle awareness and bike lanes and safe routes. However, I don't think this is the right way to go. Not only did I not like it before, but I especially don't like it when it's gone from moving violations to now all tickets. I think that a government who raises revenue by basically ticketing criminal charges, it's a mistake. I think you'd be hard-pressed to find a judge or a criminal attorney or even a DA who would agree with this being an appropriate measure to raise revenue. So I wholeheartedly agree with the goal. You know, I love your organization, love the events you do, love the idea of raising money for bicycle awareness. I just think that saying anybody who gets a ticket in Longmont, you know, pays $10. You know, I work with people all the time that just don't have any money whatsoever. You know, it's just difficult, and I think that it's a mistake for us to use this as a funding source. Just remember the last time you got a ticket, and you see how much you have to pay, and you go, oh, that's not fair. So when we get a ticket next time, just remember when they write that ticket, no complaints, pay the bill, plead guilty, and be happy about it. But I think we should vote no on this. I don't have any questions, just a comment.
Okay.
And I love you, Buzz. I love you.
Well, I have to say the only other person that probably loves biking more than exactly is me here. And I think Brian has made some good points. You know, we did get a letter from Judge Vanderhey that was delivered to our desk last week, and you know, I guess she was very much against this. You know, on one hand, I could say, well, gee, you know, you got the people that cause most of the problems that are funding this, but, you know, that's a lot of these people, like Brian says, probably don't have a lot of extra money to be making these payments. You know, I guess they could still work it off or whatever they do when they don't have money. You know, they have these programs that they can come and work off their fine by doing community service work. But so I'm conflicted too. I mean, I really, really like this whole idea, but maybe there's a better way to fund it. Councilmember Moore?
Thank you, Mayor Coombs. So I guess I didn't pick up on the fact about the it being assessed on all violations. I thought it said it's not just moving violations. Is that correct?
I'm going to defer to the city attorney in their office. I think it was just moving violations, tickets issued in a moving violation. So it's not all tickets. So, for instance, if you're caught for jaywalking, you wouldn't pay a $10 fee on top of your jaywalking. It would be something issued in moving violations, which is what we've been talking about through the duration of these different conversations.
It does say moving violation. Okay. Yeah, I read it as moving violations.
It is moving violations, not parking tickets and jaywalking.
That's what it says.
Yep, that's correct. It's not all tickets, it's moving violations.
Okay.
So what would be, we're expecting to get $18,000 a year in revenue from this. What would be the cost to administer the program?
Mayor, Councilmember Moore, I can answer that question. We did ask the Finance Department to calculate what that might look like. And for a fund this size, Assistant Finance Director Molly Kostelecki estimated that it would take approximately 1 hour per month. And so that would be the staff time that would be devoted to carrying out this fund, maintaining the fund. So unfortunately, I don't have her hourly wage with me, but that is the total amount that they estimate it would take to maintain. Now, setting it up obviously would take some additional time, but on an ongoing basis, 1 hour per month.
12 hours per month.
12 hours per year, yeah.
12 hours per year.
Correct.
Minus the hours for the program. I mean, so that's just the administrative financial component.
Understand.
Again, based on the nature of the program, and again, as I indicated in the last time this was brought before council, not knowing what the program looks like, it's really hard to estimate what staff time that will take in the future.
Councilmember Moore, excuse me, you're still on.
I thought Ryan was going to. Well, I am conflicted about this and the fact that the amount of money being raised is very small. And it is apparently moving violations only. Is that correct? Everybody's in agreement with that?
That's correct.
So, like I say, I'm not sure I can really support this all that well, so I'll let other people speak.
Councilmember Finley.
Thank you, Mayor Coombs. I do not have any problem charging people who break the law $10 for a safety program. It's done in other cities around our area. The money goes to a good cause. It's not a lot of money, but it's enough money to make a difference, and so I would support it.
Councilmember Christensen.
I agree with Councilwoman Finley. I think if you read it closely down here, I was kind of puzzled too when Brian said that, when Mayor Pro Tem Bagley said that. I think if you read this, it's like, it appears to me that what's going on is if you get a ticket for, say, speeding, and you have a broken headlight, and you also have neglected to update your license, in other words, you have multiple things, you don't pay for each thing. It's for a ticket where there's a moving violation, but there may be other things, but you don't pay per violation, you pay per ticket. So it's just one $10 thing, which makes it cheaper for people than if they had like 10 things on the ticket. So I think that's the intention here, and I'm supporting it.
Now, I don't have the letter in front of me, but didn't Judge Vanderhay dispute the $1,800? I thought I remember saying that her calculations that we wouldn't get as much money as what we're claiming we would get.
I did not receive, Mayor Coombs, members of council, I did not receive that letter, so I don't know what was in it. However, I would like to address the hardship case. We are preserving the hardship case within this ordinance so that if somebody cannot pay their fine or whatever it happens to be, they're not going to be assessed the $10 surcharge.
Okay.
So if they can't meet that burden, then Judge Vandehay's community service program would intervene at that point. So we don't want to put anybody else out who's already out and so forth.
Councilmember Hagley.
Thank you, Mayor Coombs. Can anybody tell me what section 11.04.072 through 11.04.100 is? I'm not going to read it, but it's a hell of a lot of traffic violations. You know, my point is 11.04.072 through 11.04100, and sections 11.04120 through 11.04140, except for 11.04122 and 11.04135. You know, bring a $10 charge, and I just think, again, it's just our police officers should be out there enforcing the law to protect the public, not raise revenues for our city.
I know what it is.
And so I understand that it's just that these creep up. I see it in other cities. I see it in other counties. And the fine, let's just say worst case scenario, DUI, DUI. $600, $1,500 fine for DUI. But after all the fines and are tacked on that governments have imposed like this, it's now you're at another $2,000, $2,500, $3,000. And you might say, oh, good for them, go get them. But we're not talking about DUIs alone. We're talking about several things that you're going to look at and go, oh, wait, that's a moving violation? Really? It's in there. And so, again, I just think it's bad government policy to raise revenues by imposing criminal sanctions on our citizens. Constitutional argument for me. So, love bicycling, but again, just can't support it.
Councilman Santos? Thank you, Mayor. Sean, the 1 hour you're considering is for finance, for Molly, correct?
Yes, sir.
But you're not taking into consideration that TAB is going to be the board that's going to oversee the distribution of funds of this. Is that correct? That's still the case, correct?
Mayor Coombs, Councilmember Santos. At this point, that process hasn't been laid out. The TAB has said that they would be willing to come up with a program and to review applications if that were the case, and then those applications would be referred to City Council for approval.
Okay, so you have to take into consideration when TAB meets, there's 3 or 4 members of staff. So those are other staff costs that need to be taken into consideration as well. Because we cost out everything, and I know TAB meets, and that's an ongoing board that meets. But just like we cost and charge every fund for staff time, whether it's, ETS gets, if someone calls from finance, they get each department has a budget. If you do budgeting, this should be probably charged appropriate as well. So that needs to be taken into consideration as well. I mean, this fund could dry up really fast at $10, and I'm not saying that I'm in favor of jacking it up either. As I said before, I said yes, go work on this. This might not be ready for prime time. Looking at Judge Vandehey's letter, which was somehow left out of the packet that we got later. But it was actually sent to us by the judge. Bicycle Longmont's presentation is based on certain assumptions. $10 per point for a 4-point violation, a $10 surcharge, and a $15 fuel cost surcharge. So if it's so it's only a $65 for $65. This is her letter. For a ticket, clearly their facts are incorrect. They focus on a number of tickets, 1,800. Multiply that by 10 and arrive at 18,000. I don't know where the 1,800 comes from. Mr. Craigwood assumes and encourages council to reach the same conclusion that imposing an additional $10 per ticket will net $18,000 for his proposal. In fact, some defendants do not pay. They may have holds on their licenses or may go to jail if it is possible for some traffic offenses. Some may be not guilty, and some may not come to court. Some people think if they move away, your ticket just goes away. So there's some breakdown of that. This is titled Traffic Safety Surcharge. It's still very bicycle heavy. It seems like it's just focused on bicycles. And with, as Councilmember Bagley said, it just seems that it's piling on. When does a ticket become too much? You have to find that fine line where those that violate a law can't afford to pay the ticket that goes with that law. I get it. And don't get me wrong, the judge and I very rarely agree on much. But I think she's got a point here. This still isn't ready for prime. I still don't think it's ready for prime time. It just feels, again, I know the intention of Bicycle Longmont is to get more bicycle education. And as Buzz said, Buzz says you look along Main Street, we have dismount zones. Tuesday, 9 o'clock at Ziggy's, I'm down there, and I just see people riding along. There's no education, there's no enforcement, because you guys don't want it. And until there's some enforcement, until there's some, there might be some education in here, but this is a traffic safety surcharge. There's got to be more education, not only just for bicycles, but for vehicles. And it may not be for vehicles looking out for motorcycles, vehicles, whether you learn how to strap your young child into a car seat properly. I just don't see it in here yet.
I'm really in favor of the city of Longmont becoming the next step from the silver to the gold. I go up to Fort Collins, and all the major arterials there, they've got bike lanes. I think we do a really good job here. I think we could do better. I'd be in favor of putting this as a funding source as part of our budgeting, like $20,000 a year into a fund like this. I would, heavily favor that, I guess, more than this method at this point. I know last time when you came out here and I was really for it, but, having a chance to reflect and then reading the judge's letter and really thinking about it, on one hand, it's easy to justify, well, the people that cause all these traffic and safety problems should be paying their fair share, and I can agree with that, but then, I'm conflicted. I think Councilmember Daly makes some good points also. Councilmember Levinson.
I also recall that the letter Judge Van Hay sent us mentioned, well, why don't we do this work if it's so important within the Public Safety Fund? And, right now the Public Safety Fund ebbs and flows with the amount of sales tax revenue, and there's no consistency to that. And we do use the Public Safety Fund to do some matching grant stuff can be used to do some leveraging of money. But if we're going to rely on the Public Safety Fund, then we're going to have to cut something in the Public Safety Fund. And I don't see that anybody, when we're doing budget time, has been willing to cut into what we've been proposed from the police and safety departments for public safety. Nobody's come along and said, oh, we also believe that bicycle safety and education, especially the interaction of bicycles and vehicles on the road, is an important enough thing that we're going to propose it and make it part of that. So I don't know how else the work is going to get done, to be honest with you. The other aspect of this, which we haven't spoken about, is that it's got a sunset on it. We'll try it for 3 years. If it's not working, the council's going to have to review it in 3 years. The first year is probably going to be the education piece. The second year, you'll get some real numbers, and if, according to Judge Van Hay, the 1,800 violation number that Bicycle Longmont came up with is some kind of fuzzy math number, then we'll know how many violations there are and then how many violations actually pay the fine or go to the alternative method of community service. So you'll have some real numbers by the end of year 2. And then going into the third year where the review would happen, then the assessment can be made whether or not we want to continue the program and then have real numbers around the staff time and everything. Every time we start something a little bit new and tweak things, we're going to have some of the learning curve, as Mr. Lewis mentioned. We'll work out all those details. As far as the additional staff time, the TAB programs or spend staff time on a number of things that come out from different funds too that we haven't scrutinized at the level we're talking about scrutinizing this. So I'm not as concerned about, the big picture of the work that TAB's going to do to guide a program, that's got a meager amount of money to it. Sometimes simply by doing something like a small surcharge, you can maybe get some attention to an issue, and then if we really feel it needs to be funded differently, we can always tweak it. In fact, we could tweak it if things aren't working at the end of year one and there's no appreciable funding in the fund source. Then council could always bring it up for a review after a year or two, not even wait the full 3 years. The 3 years is the maximum. Doesn't ever say that we can't do it in a minimum time period either if it's really not yielding the results.
And if I may, Mayor Coombs, members of council, within the ordinance, as you read it, there are 2 trigger points for review. One, the city manager's office has to provide an annual update of the fund and how much it's taking in. There's a second trigger within that if that fund reaches $25,000, then there has to be another update to city council to let you know that that fund has accumulated. I don't know if it's too much money or what it is, but when it hits $25,000, then the council is apprised of that once again. And those are within the ordinance as well. The areas that Councilmember Bagley identified of the ordinance, those sections 1104, Chapter 11, Section 4, 72 through 100, 120 through 140, and so forth. Those are all of the sections of the municipal code that relate to moving violations. Moving violations only, and not the parking violations and all the other different things and so forth. That seem to make sense for this surcharge to pertain to, and so forth. And so with the walk zones downtown, I agree that there hasn't been enough education, there hasn't been enough outreach, there hasn't been enough education around getting people to get off their bikes and to walk them on the sidewalks. And that we're trying to get folks to go out to the alleys, but there isn't any money for it. It's something that was put in. It's like what you would all call an unfunded mandate. There's no money to educate people on the dismount zones or anything like that. What this fund does is it puts in place a funding source where money would be available to do that level of education within the community. And it doesn't have to be just bikes and stuff like that. It can be the Public Works Department. If you remember back when the first traffic circles were going in, nobody knew how to drive around those things. Suddenly there was something in the middle of the road, and we had people hitting the brakes and getting rear-ended. We had all sorts of different things. So when you see city traffic circles in Longmont, they put signs all the way around those things to the extent that it shrouds all of the shrubbery and so forth that they put them. You go to Fort Collins, they're beautifully landscaped and there are no signs and so forth. That is a direct result of people not knowing how to use the traffic pieces that are within our road. If you have constituents that live on Mountain View west of Hover, you'll remember those neighborhood residents wanted to add a whole bunch of things to Mountain View to slow the cars down as they approached airport. That didn't happen because there wasn't any money to reach out and do the education in those neighborhoods, and the stuff that they came up with was far more expensive than what the Transportation Improvement Fund could fund at that certain time. Well, this fund wouldn't be able to put in the capital projects. It could identify through whether it's Safe Routes to School or whether it's other outreach efforts, high priority, high visibility, high impact things that doesn't cost a lot of money. So.
Yeah, I noticed in some of these other cities that had these surcharge fees, they use the money for all kinds of things like traffic calming circles and speed bumps and other things besides just quick bike things. Could we potentially use some of this money? Well, I guess in our traffic calming circle, they would blow away at $25,000 in a heartbeat. So, yeah, how did these other cities raise so much money to do all these other traffic calming things? It doesn't have a much higher than $10 fee then.
So Fort Collins' fee is $35 on moving violations. Evans is $25. Greeley was at $25. And then it came to my attention that Colorado Springs as well has a surcharge like this. Plus, they also charge a bike tax of $4 on the sale of every bike within the town. That $4 tax doesn't necessarily put the local bike shops out of business. The big revenue generators for the bike tax is Target, Dick's, Sports Authority, those different things when it comes to those things. But to your point, Fort Collins is able to bring in $350,000 to $450,000 a year. One, because they have $125,000 in their regional center, drawing people into that community. But also, theirs is 3 times as much as what we're proposing at this point.
Right.
And if I can address one other thing, I missed on my notes about staff time and administration for like the Transportation Advisory Board. This is something I have experience with. I used to be the Historic Preservation Liaison for the city for 7 years, and as the staff liaison to the Historic Preservation Commission, my liaison work was 10% of my overall job responsibilities. So of 2,000 hours, it's basically 200 hours out of the year that I was supposed to spend supporting a quasi-judicial board. So I don't think that, I never saw that my staff time for a board that I enjoyed supporting being a burden to myself as the Historic Preservation Liaison. And I would wager that staff likes to support the Transportation Advisory Board as well, and I don't see this particular advisory piece, this surcharge and the programs that would come through in an application process as overly burdensome for them. So.
And as far as people riding their bikes on the sidewalks, I don't think it's education. I think it's total willful disregard. They don't care. I mean, the only thing that's going to solve that is enforcement, unfortunately, is my personal opinion. Councilmember Moore?
Thank you, Mayor Coombs. I move ordinance 2014-24 to second reading and public hearing.
Second.
Okay. Councilmember Farrell?
I just had one quick question. Eugene, when asked a question, you said that you didn't write this ordinance, so you didn't have the answer. Have you not reviewed this ordinance?
Mayor and Council, I understood that Bicycle Longmont is the sponsor of this item. My office reviewed it for legal sufficiency and nexus, and that was the extent of our review.
Okay.
Okay. Okay, we've got a motion. It's been seconded. Okay, it passes 5-2.
Thank you very much for your time.
Mayor Coombs, the second item that was pulled from the agenda is ordinance 2014-25, which is credits for water and sewer service, and Dale will make that presentation.
Okay.
Mayor Coombs and members of council, I'm Dale Rademacher, Director of Public Works and Natural Resources. The item that we have before you tonight is an ordinance that creates actually a new chapter, Chapter 1407 in the Municipal Code, in order for us to have guidance and process in order to deal with the issue of providing credits for water and sewer fees within redevelopment areas. And what I'd like to actually do, since it is sort of a new chapter, is actually walk through some of those portions of it and obviously answer any questions that council may have. But it's on page 61 of your packet. And the one of the first key things about this is that this ordinance only applies to those areas of the city that are contained within a redevelopment area, an urban renewal area, or the DDA. And so it is not citywide. It is sort of confined that way. We also have defined in section 1407.20 numerous definitions in there. I won't go through all those definitions with you, but essentially what we're looking at here is the issue of, I call it sort of capacity that was previously used on parcels in the city, and again, in particular in urban renewal and downtown areas, that for whatever reason is not currently being utilized, fully utilized. And so that we have a history of that demand being placed on both the water and sewer systems. And the intent of this ordinance and the intent of this chapter of the code is to allow for that unused capacity that might be stranded on a single lot to be better utilized in an overall redevelopment effort, again, to promote and help provide incentive for redevelopment activities within the city. I think it's also key to know that this process will be done in a way that will not weaken the utility. So it is not intended to put additional demands or burdens on the utility that it hasn't historically seen. It's instead intended to try to reuse that capacity in a beneficial way that the council has approved through a redevelopment process in the city. It's also in the form of credits, and those credits would be derived from looking at the capacity of the existing systems that are on the ground today and calculating what that capacity equivalency is. We would likely do it in a single family equivalency. That's the standard way that you break that out. And that then would say, and let's just say hypothetically, there's a development that has 100 capacity units sitting on a lot, and that owner also owns that property consists of multiple lots. Okay. Historically, we've said no, it has to stay just on that one lot. It can't be used in order for the greater redevelopment of the area. So we would look at those 100 units of capacity, and we would enter into an agreement with that particular property owner or developer such that there is an allocation of those 100 units of capacity throughout that development. Again, not to exceed what was ever there in the past. And the other key caveat in this ordinance is that in the event that that development doesn't fully utilize all 100 credits that were historically there, that's okay. The city's still not going to refund any money, so there's no money going from the city back to a developer. You utilize them to the best that you can within the development that the city is approving on your ground. To the extent you can utilize them, great. To the extent there's still some amount that's not used, that is not, it does not turn into cash equivalent.
So can I just ask a quick question for clarification? Okay, you got owner that owns property A, and property A's got basically 100 units that kind of historically went up, but he also owns across the street property B.
Right.
Now, when he's redeveloping property A, he really only needs
10
units there. Right. So can he then shift his other 90 units to across the street?
That's exactly what, and Mayor, you hit it exactly right. That's what this is intended to do. And so what are all the sideboards on there? So the sideboards are, again, it has to be within an urban renewal or a downtown area. It only applies to those water taps that are 3 inches or greater in diameter. And in the 2 urban renewal areas in the downtown that we have right now, there's a handful of those. We have about, I wrote it down here somewhere. We have a total of 2 taps out in the Twin Peaks Mall area that are greater than 3 inches, and we have there's actually 2 that are in the southeast urban renewal area. And so we're starting this out in a very controlled way because this is a new chapter. I think it's something that we want to sort of get our feet wet on and make sure that it works well. And so we put that condition on it as well. So only properties that have taps that are 3 inches or greater. The other thing is that this also wouldn't apply to properties that have a special water service contract, which is the old sugar factory property. It actually doesn't have a water tap. It has a special service contract. We also looked at the issue of ownership of these parcels of ground. And so the ordinance also spells out that the properties have to have been under common ownership for at least 5 years, a duration of 5 years within the last 10-year time period. And again, that's in order to keep some sideboards on it. Okay. I would imagine as we get good at this and as we roll this forward years in the future, we may come forward to you with modifications to this ordinance to potentially allow it to be used more broadly within urban renewal areas. But again, the intent of this is to allow for that unused capacity to be used in the form of an incentive to promote the redevelopment of some of these areas of the city. So I'll quit talking, but if you have questions on any of that, I can answer those. Otherwise, we'll let you take your action.
Councilmember Larson.
Yes, it may be kind of splitting hairs. However, when we're looking at your definitions around the purpose of the chapter, on page 61, as you noted, that it's to foster redevelopment in areas which the city council has identified as redevelopment or revitalization areas. It doesn't actually say, and even later on page 62, it doesn't say that those would have to be a formally adopted urban renewal area. I know that we've already got a redevelopment plan for Midtown Maine. So when you're even looking at your determination of what redevelopment means, it just says that it's consistent with the revitalization or urban renewal plan approved by the council. The council actually adopted a redevelopment plan for Midtown. So it's kind of splitting hairs, but not, because we do have a revitalization plan for Midtown that we've already been investing money in. So is there a way we can fine tune it a little bit?
So, Mayor Combs and Councilmember Levison, I do think on page 62 under line 12, where it defines what redevelopment means, the first one is that it means a site development that is within an urban renewal area or a downtown development authority. Okay. So I think that does confine it to an urban renewal area.
All three together have to be
all
consistent.
three together have
Okay,
to.
so you can't just take individual points. That
Exactly.
all three it has to meet all three conditions. That's what I just wanted to make sure I understood. Thank you.
If I can add something, a key point in this too, when you look at the definition of associated lot, it says any portion of which is within 500 feet of any portion of the primary redevelopment lot. Again, that's another piece that's pretty important. So it's not a free for all.
So you can't have a lot here one way over another corner.
To be proximate to each other.
Okay.
Right.
Councilmember Bagley.
Thank you, Mayor Coons. I move that we adopt ordinance 2014-25.
Okay, let's vote. Passes 7-0. Thank you, Dale. Yeah, let's take a 5-minute break.
Too much water.
We're going fast. Thanks, Doug. Thank you, Doug.
I really wanted to say thank you for the help that you've all given me, and I hope to be able to give back. Thank you all.
Thank you. Okay, Sandy. So, General, you're going to discuss the budget prioritization.
I am. Mayor Coombs, members of council, Sandy Cedar, Assistant City Manager, and I'm here to discuss the results of the Fiscal Fitness Survey. So you may remember that we started this journey around budget prioritization at your retreat a year ago, followed it through to your retreat this past year to really take a look at what are the things that residents want out of their city government. We worked through a community process. We had about 600 community members involved in defining what are the results that people want to see from municipal government. And they came up with 5 things, which you approved at your meeting at the end of March. Those things include reliable, innovative, and resilient infrastructure, responsive internal operations and governance, safe community, a thriving economic climate, and vibrant amenities and opportunities for all. At that meeting, we said that we were going to take those 5 and ask the community again to weigh in on their relative importance to them. And the way we would do that is by giving everyone 1,000 fake dollars and asking them to spend that. If they were in your shoes and they were the Longmont City Council and they had to determine the priorities for government, how would they spend their $1,000? So we ended up having a little over 1,100 people respond to that question, some of them via a web survey. I think I mentioned to you that we were going to go wider this time than maybe we had when we'd surveyed similarly in the past. So we did a web survey in English and in Spanish. We did these chip buckets. I hope you were able to take a look at them that John Clark and Aaron Fosdick developed, where people could actually spend poker chips on their $1,000 on the 5 different desired results. And we placed those in many city facilities and then took one of them on the road and went in front of 5 or 6 grocery stores, including a couple of the tortillerias and Lucky's Market and King Supers, and just tried to get kind of the average person on the street take on this. In addition to doing that work, we also took paper surveys out to several of the community meetings. You may have seen them if you attended any of the flood update meetings, the neighborhood meetings, Neighborhood Group Leaders Association. So we took paper surveys in English and in Spanish, web surveys in English and in Spanish. We had the chip buckets in facilities and then in front of grocery stores. And then just to see how our survey results stacked up, we also did a demographically representative sample of Longmont. And what that means is that this was a group of a little less than 30 people that their demographics represented the demographics of Longmont, the Longmont community. And so what you have in front of you are the results of those surveys. Essentially, I kind of broke it up into larger chunks, although I have more detail if you're interested in it. But in the city facilities, you can see the percentages of how people spent their coins. The grocery stores, the surveys, which were a bit more granular because you could literally spend $11 here or, $900, $912 here. And then the demographic sample. The demographic sample did an online survey as well, so they could be very granular in their results. Essentially, what we found was that the total overall results mirrored pretty closely to the demographic sample. And so what you see in front of you is really all the totals of how everybody together prioritized their $1,000. And so we wanted to check in with you today because the next step of this is, I'm sure if you've talked to any city staff member, they will say, we're working on budget. And that means that they have defined their programs and services. They are now scoring them for things like mandates and reliance on the city and total overall cost recovery, things like that, and how they affect these 5 results. We'll take that list, that prioritized list, and we will basically weigh them based on what the community said are the most important pieces. I do want to note that the internal services, that percentage actually comes out of the weight because in the internal services, they support all the other departments, so it would be sort of unfair to stack them against the external services, I think. But anyway, so what we're asking you today is this an appropriate percentage to weigh along all of those city services? And what our recommendation is to use the overall percentage that includes everybody. But in the past, we've certainly talked about the demographic sample being different. In this case, it's not particularly different. So you can either use the demographic sample to apply, you can use the overall sample to apply. or something else. And so that's what I'm here to ask you tonight.
Well, I think myself, I would use the overall. I mean, it's not that far, and it's kind of an average of the averages. So. Councilmember Levison.
That's exactly what I was thinking, that any of the anomalies that somebody decided, you know, people shopping for groceries, if you're hungry, you might put more into safe community because you want to get out of the store with your change into your car with those groceries and get home. Yeah, that's what you're thinking about. So maybe that's why you have a blurb for grocery store respondents saying, I got to get home and get safe getting home. So it just kind of weighs out all the methods, and maybe just whatever your deviation is evens it all out. And it's surprising to me, actually, how close all the numbers were. Even though I've heard people say they put like all their money in one thing, then others put all their money in another thing that balanced out the first person. So it just seemed the randomness came together in the same numbers. I don't know. Unless somebody else was stuffing the chips in. Somebody brought in poker chips from home, or the thrift store and threw them in. So I don't know if you like marked them special to see if people were stuffing the battle box. I mean, we're not Ukraine yet. I know that, but.
And Mayor Coombs, Councilmember Levison, we actually reused the poker chips, so we would have defeated our purpose by marking them. So we reuse them often every day.
Well, I move that we use the overall average as the percentages to derive our.
Second.
Okay, let's vote. Okay, that passes 7-0.
Thank you, Mayor Coombs. The next step of this process is, as I said, we're going to take these and apply them, weigh them to the entire list of prioritized services once we finish this process. And then and at the same time, we're adding in what are the costs to each of those services. So staff is currently, they have already scored their programs on the other things outside of this. Those are being peer reviewed this week. We are costing each of those programs, and we will have for you for your retreat in June this prioritized list with these weightings attached, as well as costs of every program in the city of Longmont for your consideration. So thank you.
So just for clarification, vibrant amenities and opportunities for all, would sheets of ice and a pool, would that fall in that category?
Mayor Coombs, yes, and I heard people say, does that mean that? Yes, and put their chips in it. So,
okay.
Thanks.
Thank you. Okay, it's time for final call. Public invited to be heard. Is there anybody from the public who'd like to speak at this time? Seeing no one, I'll close final call. Public invited to be heard. So now it's time for mayor and council comments. Councilmember Finley.
Thank you, Mayor Coombs. I always have a business of the week, but in this case, I'm going to use the Longmont Area Chamber of Commerce. I think they demonstrated tonight their commitment to our community, and Leadership Longmont is one of their excellent programs. They have many others. I would encourage all businesses, large or small, to join the Longmont Area Chamber of Commerce.
Thank you, Mayor Coombs. Just a reminder, the Peace Officer Memorial is this Friday at 1 o'clock at the Safety and Justice Building at 225 Kimbark. It's open. This event's open to all. It's in memory of those law enforcement personnel that lost their lives in the line of duty in 2013.
Councilmember, thank you, Mayor Coombs. Just some great programs going on at the library. We have the right person doing that in youth services. Her name's Electra. And she is definitely electric. Yes. So anyway, the last Lego League Expo night, they had 170 participants. It's a record. And then last Saturday night, they had Teen After Dark meeting at the Tinker Mill down on 4th Avenue, where they had 6 3D printers running. They had a Jacob's ladder, which kind of explains how electricity works. They had a musical Tesla coil. They had Raspberry Pi programming, as well as a stringer recording device from the 1950s, which predates magnetic tape. So I would say the library's doing their part. I'd also like to, thank the Tinker Mill for their participation in providing us the venue for them to do that on Saturday night. Thank you.
Councilmember Robinson.
Thank you. I'm glad you mentioned that. I did not have the opportunity to go to the events this weekend, but it also highlights the new relationship with the city and Tinker Mill using the former print shop as a base of location downtown, and then also there's a secondary location. I understand they moved, it was moving weekend for them as well, so the fact that they moved from the mall location and then held all these programs simultaneously shows that they really got a lot of great volunteers and some strength in people coming out to do fun stuff in the community. So I want to thank Mr. Brandstetter for coming and talking about his personal journey. Many of us had met him when he was at the beginning of this journey, and I think that this is a guy that you need to stand next to a congressman to allow people to understand what real people that have setbacks are doing and struggling every day and making things better for themselves and their community and overcoming personal setbacks. So I applaud you, Mr. Brandstetter. The other thing is there are some other events. I can't even keep track of all the other events coming up in the community, but graduation next weekend for St. Vrain, and just encourage everybody to get out there in the community to various things. I know that one thing I will be attending on Friday is at Indian Peaks Elementary School. They were part of a small pilot project from Colorado Municipal League around a art contest for fourth graders, saying what a city, showing pictorially what city services are and what city government does as far as cleanliness and safety and smartness. And so I'll be meeting CML staff members at Indian Peaks on Friday to take a look at their little poster projects, and hopefully we'll be able to get a copy to bring back to City Hall, and we can have show and tell, fourth grade show and tell art next week.
Well, on Saturday, I guess the employees had a pretty good day of bowling, and I walked in to see Councilmember Bagley just nail a beautiful strike. I mean, he looked like a pro, but looked like everybody was having a good time. But it was great to see the employees and the families all have a good time and enjoying the day, so I appreciate the city doing something like that. It was a great team-building thing. That's it for me. City Manager, any remarks?
Yes, Mayor, Council. First remark is I figured out Saturday I am not a bowler, and my career is over. And so it was a great time, and that the event was really not only to thank the employees for everything that they've done, and the staff and our coworkers, and for everything that they've done over the last year, primarily since the flood. I mean, it was a big part of this. But it was also a time to thank their families, because what a lot of people don't realize is the families have missed a lot of time with the folks that have been work in this organization because of the work that they're doing in the recovery process. And so a significant part of that was to thank the families for putting up with us and missing us for a significant amount of time. Speaking of the flood, over the last weekend, with the rain and everything, there were a lot of questions in terms of how's the river doing, what does the water flow look like. I would point out that if you go to the city's website, there's a link that says live cameras and water flow information, and it's a great link to use. It tells you what the amount of cubic feet moving at any given point in the reporting cycle, but you also have cameras, and you can see what's actually happening in the river. And if you look, there's stick gauges there, and a lot of this is because of the gauges that were blowing out as we continue to put new gauges in. So great information. It's out there for the public to see, so they are seeing the same information that we're seeing and that we're utilizing to make decisions. Also, some council members have asked for the brochures for the stormwater bond ballot question, and we have some of those here today that we're going to give you, and if you all would like some more, we will provide you with more brochures, or as many as you need.
Thank you.
No further comments.
Mayor Coombs, before you move off city manager, I just want to remind you of your joint meeting on Thursday with the Boulder County Commissioners here at the study session room at 5:30.
Okay. City Attorney, any comments?
No comments, Mayor.
All right, this meeting is adjourned.